Welcome everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of My Banking Journey by Mr. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 35. The chapter A Banking Journey Begins is continuing. The link of earlier episodes is available in the description. The banking journey begins. Moving to the new building. Early 1969. The moment for which we were anxiously waiting finally arrived. Bank had a grand inaugural function in the evening, followed by a dinner for all the staff. The ground floor was the parking lot, driveway, and staff canteen. Madras branch occupied the first floor. Regional office and FE departments occupied the second floor. The other floors were let out, third and fourth. For the first time, we had intercom connection. The offices were fully air conditioned. We had an officer's lunchroom in the second floor. Ladies had a separate lunchroom. My department was on the second. My workload had increased. So initially I was only doing the job for nodal officer. Later I was asked to process new proposals for small scale industries for Madras branch. Once I got the sanction, the proposal would be handed over to the advanced department for operations. They would take the documents and monitor the account. I was also asked to process the proposals emanating from branches and put them up to the regional manager for sanction. Thus, I had a dual role. The volume was slowly increasing. I had an officer, clerk, and a typist to help me. I think K. Gopalan joined me as my second officer. I also remember Miss Vijay Lakshmi joined my department as a clerk, a smart worker. Later on, she got promoted and worked as a branch manager. One of the luxuries we enjoyed while was the officer's lunch. There was no lunch. We used to go out to a hotel for lunch. Now quite a few of us started bringing lunch from home and had a glorious. In the early days, I remember three regular and active participants. One was K. Amin, who was later transferred to Bangalore and then quit the bank and joined private sector. He used to imitate many bosses and we used to have a hearty laugh. Mr. M.K. Shroff, who was in charge of loans and guarantees, was another participant. I had mentioned in detail about Mr. Shroff under time management and Kenyan experiences. Shroff would tell us about head office gossip and transfers. Since he was earlier in the board secretariat, he used to get a lot of information. Besides, he was also a good conversationalist. In between, he started a practice of talking on a banking subject by all of us once in a week. The third one was Mr. G. Radhakrishnan, who was in regional office during the period of D.N. Shukla and R.P. Vaidya. GR was like a kingmaker. Though he would not only openly reveal anything, we always tried to get some news from him. He would throw some clues. I would write about him separately. In short, every morning we used to look forward to the lunch hour. BRP. Before I write about the whirlwind Parthasarathi, should mention about B.R. Parthasarathi. While Venugopalan joined in 1966, B.R. Parthasarathi joined in 1968. He had a first class in BCom from Madras University, which was a rare achievement. But I was furious with him. He was doing CA and had completed intermediate examination and abandoned the course and joined the bank. I told him that he should have completed the CA. As was the practice, he was put in charge of dispatch department. It was a thankless job. No courier service in those days. You have to wait until the regional manager sent his last cover to be posted to head office. I remember a day when Mr. Karnik sent word to PRP and that he should wait for a cover to be sent to head office. I also kept him company and the cover was given at 8:30 p.m. We walked to the general post office, 20 minutes walk, posted the letter and went home. I also remember another incident. Mr. A.R. Soul was the General Secretary of the Federation of Officers Association. He addressed the officers in Madras. Bank was still in the private sector. Practice of giving double increments was in force. Mr. Soul threw open the house for a question-answer session. As a young officer with ambition, BRP asked him about the accelerated increments. I had not seen anyone getting the same in South after I joined. That was all. Soul flared up, shouted at the top of his voice, all officers are equal. No one deserves accelerated increment. His tone scared us. I lost my respect for him on that day. I expected a general secretary to be patient with his members. I'd already written about BRP, who helped me a lot in late. I would like to add that he always identified himself with the assignment wholeheartedly, whether it was a manager of rural branch, Nangavaram, or as zonal manager of Bombay Metropolitan Zone, or as CE of Singapore, he made a mark for himself. More than anything, he was a good teacher. It is a pity that he opted not to go beyond GM level. He continues to be one of my close friends, constantly in touch with me. A friendship of almost 5 decades. A whirlwind called Parthasarthi. The social control was in full force. The government wanted the banks to induct one person associated with small-scale industries on the board. One day in early 1969, we received a communication that Mr. M.S. Parthasarthi, MSP of Chennai, had been appointed to as a director of the bank. Until then, we had not heard about him. Mr. Karnik called me and told me about this development. MSP was the vice president of the Federation of Associations of Small Scale Industries of India, FASI. He was the owner of Standard Pencil Factory. It was located at the Guindy Industrial Estate in Madras. MSP called on the regional manager after attending his first board meeting in Mumbai. Mr. Karnik had called me to his cabin to meet him. MSP was full of for the board of Bank of India, which had many eminent persons on the board. I think MSP was the first Tamilian, not, if not the first South Indian, to join the board of POI. I had never imagined at that meeting that this man was going to increase my workload like anything. Miss B was a very busy person. Within a couple of days after meeting him at Mr. Karnik's office, he had called me to his office in Gindi. He was very nice but spoke with confidence and authority. He introduced me to another small-scale industrialist and requested me to look into his requirements. Surprisingly, he asked the proponent to provide some property as collateral. Only a few minutes back, he was critical of banks asking for collateral. I then realized that it was for the public consumption. He told the persons who approached him to offer their property if they had as collateral. He tried to help people and at the same time tried to protect the bank where he was a director. That was the beginning of a spate of proposals which started flowing into our bank. He would always phone me in advance and brief me about the background of the borrower. My work increased tenfold. Readers should not mistake this approach with that of a financial consultant. Because of his position in FASI, many people would approach him for help. In fact, we had many good units recommended by him who went on to become very good customers of the bank. My department had to prepare the proposal and then get the sanction of manager of Madras branch or regional manager and HO as the case may be. I made it a point to inspect the units first before processing the proposal. Mr. Karnik also supported me with enough staff. I remember Mr. Karnik carried papers to MSP to get his approval. I think HO wanted directors' recommendations for some big proposals emanating from South. But as MSP was busy, Mr. Karnik would go to the tennis court in a club where MSP used to play tennis every evening. All this looked very funny at that time. I remember a faux pas committed by me. One Mr. Matthew Kuncheria, a fine gentleman, he passed away a couple of years ago. He was brother of Mr. Anthony Vachaparambil, who was manager of Cochin or Ernakulam at that time. Met me at the instance of MSP. He had a successfully run industry at Ambattur Industrial Estate and was planning a new project in Bangalore. He came on a Saturday and requested me to come to Woodlands Drive-In restaurant on Sunday morning for breakfast with MSP. I just told him I would try but did not commit myself. I was quite unhappy with the invitation. I thought, why should I spend my Sunday morning to have breakfast with a customer? I simply skipped. If it was a direct call from MSP, I might have gone since he was the director of the bank. I had no connection at home, no phone connection at home. On Monday morning, Mr. Kuncheria called me to say that he and MSP were waiting for me at drive-in. I gave some lame excuse. I was worried that MSP may call me up. Luckily, he had never mentioned it. I also did not talk to him about Matthew Concheria's entrepreneurship. I would write later. Sometime in June 1969, MSP requested me to visit a unit in Salem. It was a printing press. I told him that we had no branch in Salem and would be difficult to monitor operations. But he still insisted on my visiting the unit first. So I left for Salem on 18th July 1969 by night train. On 19th, I inspected the unit. I was very much impressed. The owner was one B. Chettiar, name change. I had never seen such a humble person, but the problem of distance was nagging my mind. Anyway, the solution came in a different way. I boarded the train in the night. In the first class coach, I had a co passenger, Mr. K. Rajaram. He was a minister in the DMK government who were ruling the state. He was mentioning that Indira Gandhi had nationalized the banks. It came as a shock to me. For the first time, I spent a sleepless night in the train. Next morning, I read the papers. The boards of the bank have been disbanded, and the chief executive was named as custodian of the bank. So MSP's term had ended. But the 7 months he was our director was hectic. I learned a lot about small scale industries. He created a passion in me to finance the SSI units. It was like a training ground for me. A rare experience for an officer with less than 3 years service to work closely with an active director. MSP kept in touch with me till I was in Chennai. He would send proposals once in a while but would never pressurize us. He used to invite me for various seminars and conferences organized by the SSI associations in Tamil Nadu. P.S. We politely informed Mr. B. Chattiar about our constraints. He appreciated our difficulties. Till peace, immediately after closing within a week, we had to submit first lot of returns, which were essential for preparation of the balance sheet. It was a big bundle. After it was signed and sent, there were frantic calls from head office and that they had not received the return. AKR called the dispatch officer, who informed that it did not come to him. A frantic search took place. Finally, it was found on top of a Godrej bureau in the banking hall. What had happened was that it was given to a sepoy for taking to the dispatch department. Meanwhile, some on called him. He kept it on top of the nearest shelf and attended to the work and totally forgot about the returns. Post nationalization, immediately after nationalization, agricultural finance was also given equal importance. Since I was looking after SSI, agriculture was also added to my portfolio. I got a very hardworking officer called K.S. Chakrapani to help me. Special agricultural officers were yet to be appointed. We had no clue as to how we could lend to agriculture from Madras. We never had any rural branch in South at that time. Circulars started emanating from head office initially. There was no service area had gone to even Chengalpattu, 40 kilometers for us to inspect agricultural land, financing a pump set. In the early days, I had two interesting experiences. One was financing a small poultry farm on the outskirts of Chennai. That was the first time I learned about vegetarian eggs. Until then, I was under the impression that chicks would come out of all eggs. Another was financing a grape plantation of a retired captain of Indian Army in Cuddalore, which was far away, nearly 175 kilometers. It was a bold venture by the captain. I went all the way to Cuddalore to inspect the farm. Anyway, the project ran into difficulties at a later date. Meanwhile, we had a breakthrough. Head office had asked us to finance sugarcane cultivators with a tie-up with a sugar factory. There was a well-known sugar factory with customers near Tiruchirappalli. Mr. Karnik told a lot of interest in working out the scheme. I visited the sugar factory and we finalized the terms and documentation procedure. I never knew this contact would help us to open a cluster of rural branches in the area. I was also involved in the survey of the branches. Mr. N.R. Vijayaraghavan, a senior officer who was the manager of Tiruchirappalli branch, and I surveyed Pulambadi, Arumbar, etc. I think Pulambadi was the first rural branch opened in Tamil Nadu. Once the scheme was finalized, it was decided to keep the accounts in Madras main branch itself. My department was asked to maintain the loan ledgers. We opened about 24 ledgers. Chakrapani was in charge. It was one-time disbursement, application of interest, and recovery. Even though these were new areas, I took them as a challenge. I can never forget one half year when we had a difference in the ledgers. There were only two, there were only 3 days left for closing. Still, the ledgers could not be balanced. Chakrapani and I started the work on one evening. We were in the bank till 5 a.m. next morning. Then we went home and came back at 9:30 a.m. During the day, we had to attend to routine work. Again, we started at 5 p.m., continued till 6 a.m. next day. Difference had narrowed down, but still not over. I told Chakrapani to wind up and went home. Came back at 10 a.m. To my surprise, Chakrapani was still there with an unshaven face and a big grin. He had located the difference and ledgers were balanced. What a commitment. We had not slept for half an hour during those 48 hours. Transfer to Mumbai spotted. In late 1968, Mr. Karnik called me to his cabin and told me that the head office wanted to transfer me to internal audit department at head office and that he had refused to relieve me. I was happy as I was also not keen to go to internal audit as I found the new department interesting. Another personal event. In July 1969, my son was born. The reason for mentioning this is to show the attitude of husbands like me in those days. My wife was staying at her brother's place in Chennai awaiting delivery. I had mentioned earlier that my brother-in-law was a well-known neurosurgeon. On 25th July, around 2 p.m., I got a call from him that my wife was having labor pains and she was taken to Isabella Hospital in Mylapore for delivery. No, I did not rush to the hospital. I continued to do my office work. I was a little tense. Around 4 p.m. or so, I got a call from my brother-in-law that my wife had delivered a boy and both were safe. Still, I did not rush to the hospital. I left at around 5 p.m. and went to the hospital. I looked at my tiny child and had a feeling that he smiled at me. What an imagination. After about a month, my wife and son left for Tiruchirappalli to stay with my parents-in-law. etc. Immediately after my wife left for Trichy, I was nominated for a training at Bankers Training College, Mumbai. The duration was 7 weeks. I was quite excited as that was the first training program which I was attending after joining the bank. I reported at the training college. Those days, a room had to be shared by two. Later on, when I went for a training, when I was in DGM or GM, when I was DGM or GM, I found the rooms were redone and were made for single occupancy. I was the only one from Bank of India. One Mr. Lamba from New Bank of India was my roommate. The food served was of very good quality. Still after first week when he started complaining about the food quality. Around 6:30 morning coffee or tea would be kept in a flask outside the room. On the first morning after brushing my teeth, I picked up the two flasks from outside and drank my coffee quickly. Then I witnessed the tea drinking ceremony of Lamba. Lamba did not brush his teeth. He sat in bed and took the cup and saucer with the tea. Then he took a sip, making a noise like an elephant drinking water from a stream. Then he looked at the ceiling for a minute. Now the second sip with the same noise. Then he looked at the corner of the room. This process of sipping and staring at some corner continued for 10 minutes. I had to watch this ritual for the entire duration of my stay. The course was inaugurated by the principal. College was adjacent to a beach in Dadar. The principal told us that we should not go the beach after 6 p.m. as it was a dangerous place. That evening after 6 p.m. our entire class was on the beach. What I saw was unbelievable. We saw an innumerable number of couples sitting on the beach and giggling and laughing. Now we know why the principal told us not to go to the beach. The course was very interesting with a number of guest speakers. One of them was Mr. Varshnia from State Bank of India. He started one afternoon after lunch, which is normally a very difficult period since many feel asleep after a heavy lunch. But within 2 minutes, he made us alert and we sat on the edge of our seats. He was an excellent orator. What amazed me was his writing numbers on the board without referring to any papers, all from memory. He would write down wheat production in tons for 5 years from memory. In between, he used to tell us a lot of anecdotes. He continued his lecture next day morning for another 2 hours. Even after 4 hours, we felt sorry that his lecture was coming to an end. I was given the task of proposing a vote of thanks. I remember what I said. What we were listening was not a lecture, it was a poetry. This won me a round of applause. Varshnia later on became the MD of SBI and then moved to Punjab National Bank as CMD. I always used to look out for the lunchtime and weekends. Lunchtime, not for lunch, but to check for letters, which would be kept on a table in the lobby. I was eager to know about the progress of my child. During weekends, I would leave around noon to my aunt's place and return on Sunday evening. A few people I cannot forget. 5. Mr. S. Ranganathan. When I joined the bank, Mr. Ranganathan was heading foreign exchange department, a suave gentleman, well dressed, excellent manners, a generous heart, liberal in spending. He started his career with American Express in New Delhi. He used to go regularly to Indian coffee house for coffee. He met a BOI executive, I think R.C. Mehta, by chance. Mr. Mehta took interest in the young man and suggested him to apply to BOI. Mr. Ranganathan indicated that he would like a posting in Chennai. Mehta agreed. Ranganathan applied and got selected. His training in in Express was quite evident in his manners and work culture. Later on, he moved to Coimbatore as manager and then as area manager of Bangalore branches. His office was above the Cantonment branch. When an attempted robbery took place at Cantonment branch one night, he was very upset. He moved to Mumbai zone as number 3, came back to Chennai as area manager in 1979, and later took charge as zonal manager in the 80s. He passed away soon after retirement. We were quite close to each other, one of the most honest officers of the bank. Male piece 1. N.R. Vijayaraghavan was a person with subtle humor, very conservative in approach. I met him in Tiruchi as mentioned above. In fact, he was a very senior officer. He told me that in the ensuing year the branch might incur a loss. I asked him why. He said his next increment was due in that year and the branch would not be able to bear that load. I would never forget his sense of humor. I recently came to know that he is 90 plus and is still very active. I pray to God that he should celebrate his centenary. Second, this is a season for diaries. I remember an old joke. There were two publishers who printed diaries. Both were of the same quality, almost a replica of each other. They sold almost same quantities, but one made huge profits and another made only small profits. So the latter went to the former and asked him, "How come are you able to make a huge profit? What is the secret?" The former replied, "In my diaries, after the first 3 months, I do keep only 10 pages per month instead of 30. No one writes a diary for more than 1 or 2 months, so I save on pages and make a killing. However, if anyone complains I have a few diaries with full pages, I will apologize and replace them." Third, this was a favorite joke of late Mr. Ranganathan. A young husband in New York was very happy when the doctor told him that his wife was pregnant. The doctor advised him that the moment the wife says it pains, he should rush to the hospital as quickly as possible. The husband had a car and started practicing almost daily to go to the hospital as fast as possible. Initially, it took him 20 minutes, but when the delivery date was nearing, he could make it in 10 minutes. Finally, the expected moment came. The wife said, "Oh dear, it pains." He took the car and made it in 9 minutes. Only thing he forgot was to take his wife along with him. BTC story continues. Mr. S. Nagarajan was heading the SSI department at head office. He had visited Madras and I knew him well. A very soft spoken and knowledgeable officer. He later moved on to Andhra Bank and then became the chairman of Bank of Mauritius. I just phoned him to say that I was in Bombay for a training. He invited me to his house in Chembur on a Sunday for lunch. I accepted. I reached his house at 10 a.m. In South, we used to have our meals in the morning by 10 a.m. I assumed that same would the practice in Mumbai. He welcomed me and we went on talking. It was 11, no sign of lunch. When it was 12, had a grave doubt as to whether I had misunderstood his invitation. Perhaps he did not invite me for lunch, so I told him I would make a move. Then he said that lunch would be ready in half an hour. It was a lesson for me. Thereafter, whenever someone invited me for lunch, I would ask him the time. Mr. Nagarajan is now living in Hyderabad. Sits at Skandagiri temple every morning chanting slokas. Even he's in his 80s. I was very happy to meet him at the temple a few months back to BTC. I also remember that there was one participant who was a treasury officer in Himachal Pradesh. Absolutely no connection with agriculture. All of us, including him, used to wonder how he was nominated. One day, the coordinator of our class told us that we had to go to the newly established agricultural training college of the cooperative banks at Pune for 5 days training. It was also a residential college. He said that we would be taken for field trips. He told us that we had an option for travel. The college would book us by train to Pune. However, if we were willing to pay additional rupees 25, we would be booked by the evening flight to Pune. About 20 of us opted for the flight. We were delivered the tickets a day before the journey. We vacated the rooms and reached Santa Cruz Airport well in time. When we were checking in, we told that all 20 tickets were issued by mistake and that the flight was overbooked. There was overbooking of the tickets. We got furious. Trainees hailing from Punjab took the lead in fighting with the airline staff. They told the airlines to schedule another flight for us on the same evening. The airlines checked that option and told us that even though they had a spare aircraft, Pune had refused permission for landing in the night. It was a military airport. And my Punjabi friends threatened to go to the tarmac and lie down in front of the scheduled flight so that it would not depart. The airlines offered us confirmed booking by the 7 a.m. Flight next morning. We told them that we were from RBI and had no place to stay since we had vacated the rooms. Indian Airlines then offered us hotel accommodation for the night with free dinner and early morning coffee. They sent us to a five-star hotel in their coach and picked us in the morning at 5:30 a.m. For rupees 25, we enjoyed a stay at a five-star hotel with free dinner as well as a flight to Pune. Needless to say, we enjoyed our stay. For many, including me, it was the first experience of staying in a five-star hotel. After 4 days, we returned to Mumbai, this time by train. The train course was coming to an end. It was decided to present a cultural program. I was asked to be the master of ceremonies. It was mainly because I was asked to propose vote of thanks to quite a few of the guest speakers. I accepted the assignment. I also prepared a humorous script. I vaguely remember it was about the problems of dhobis, barbers, and one more profession. I did not act but directed the play. The last scene was a radio broadcast in which the government nationalized all three professions. The idea was to make fun of bank nationalization. I wrote I also wrote and read out a poem in English making fun of many participants. One line I remember when we discussed about financing fisheries, it was Greek and Latin to the man from Treasury. Overall, I enjoyed the training. It was like going back to college. It also motivated me for financing agriculture. Witness to a heart attack. I had mentioned about Mr. Karnik was a very hard-working person, a man for details. His table would be full of papers. Once he went for a visit to Bangalore branch. He was to return to Madras by the evening flight. Flight was at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Karnik had reached the airport quite in time and was sitting in the lounge along with the branch manager, accountant, etc. Someone made a mistake in informing Mr. Karnik that his flight was about 8:30. Around 8 p.m. when they checked up, the flight had already left. There was so much involved in the discussions that no one heard the announcements. Naturally, Mr. Karnik lost his cool. Then they all rushed to the railway station and they were lucky to get a first class ticket by the Madras mail, which used to leave at 11 p.m. Mr. Karnik wanted to clear some files that night, which could not be done. I think a local committee meeting was scheduled the day after the arrival of Mr. Karnik. In the morning, he was calling the department heads to discuss the papers to be presented in the meeting. I was called by him around noon. I had quite a few proposals. When we were discussing a proposal, Mr. Karnik suddenly put his hand on his chest and said he was having a shooting pain. Before I could reach him, he got up and lied down on the sofa nearby and told me that he needed a doctor. I rushed out and informed his department and Mr. AKR. Within 15 minutes, the doctor arrived and examined Mr. Karnik. He suggested that Mr. Karnik should be moved to the hospital and practically confirmed that it was a heart attack. Mr. Karnik was shifted to the Mehta nursing home, which was in Chetpit. They were our customers and well known to the bank. By God's grace, Mr. Karnik survived. I think bypass surgery was unheard of in all those days. Since Mr. Karnik would worry about office work, some of us were told not to meet him for next 2 weeks. When I met him after 2 weeks, he started asking about some accounts. The doctors advised 3 months rest for Mr. Karnik. There was no DY or joint general manager at that time. So the head office sent a senior executive to act as regional manager. A few people I cannot forget. 6. GR. When I joined the bank, G. Radhakrishnan, fondly called GR, was an officer at Mount Road branch. In fact, Mount Road branch had excellent staff. Mr. S. Rangarajan was the manager. Narayanaswamy was the accountant. Ably was assisted by G. Radhakrishnan and K.P. Natarajan. I think C. Savitri was the TRO. GR was strong in credit. Later on, when I was in SSI department, GR came to regional office and was in charge. Very shrewd person. And he never believed in dictating letters. He would write all letters by hand and then give it for typing. He could guide the branches in many operational matters, knew many confidential things but would never reveal. He was a kingmaker and was good in choosing managers for branches. We became very close to each other. When Salim branch was to be opened, GR was posted as the manager. He did a good job, but he had health problems. I think he knew his end was coming. He had died when he was in the 40s. His wife got a job in the bank. Later, when I was in the head office as GM, GR's son met me for a transfer for his mother from Coimbatore to Chennai. I was happy that I could do something for GR's family. It was nice to see his grown-up son in a good position. If only GR had lived long enough, he would have reached a very high position in the bank. But fate decided otherwise. Tailpiece readers might have heard of a father and son going to the same training college, father first and son later, but in my case it was the reverse. 2 years after I returned from my 7 weeks training in BTC, my father was nominated for the program at BTC. He was working at that time as assistant director of postal services in charge of savings bank at the Postmaster General's office in Chennai. We also had another coincidence. Both of us became graduates in the same year. My father joined postal services after he passed his intermediate examination. He just applied and got selected as a clerk. Since government job was a big thing in the 30s, my grandfather advised him to discontinue studies and go for a job. However, my father had a grievance that he was not a graduate. When I was doing a BSc, he also registered himself up with Utkal University in Orissa for BA Economics. It was distance learning. He finally became a graduate in 1960 along with me. I was 19 and he was 43 at that time. Lessons I learned. First, whenever someone invites you for lunch or dinner, we should ask for the time. Second, we should fight for our rights. The chapter A Banking Journey Begins is continuing. Thank you very much for your patience. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.